The idea of making a game harder for yourself and often more immersive sparked the creativity of a ton of different people. These people all banded together in an effort to create a thriving community of people who love to create self-imposed challenges. They did this by using already popular game worlds that have been created by some of the most talented video game developers out there. Take RuneScape for example. RuneScape is one of the most popular MMOs of all time, and I'm assuming that you've heard of RuneScape, and if you've heard of RuneScape, you've probably heard of Ironman Mode. But just in case you haven't, Ironman Mode is a restricted account type within RuneScape. All these restrictions are centered around not getting any help from any other players. So this means you can't trade with other players in any way whatsoever. That includes the Grand Exchange and trading person to person. So what this means is that instead of just buying the things that you need, like ingredients for a potion or an armor upgrade, you have to actually go to the source in which it came from in the game. You have to get the metal to make your own armor. You have to get the herbs to make your own potions. By all accounts, I think this game mode sounds like it's super annoying and tedious and probably one of the worst ways to play the game, and I feel like a lot of people do feel that way. With that being said, a restricted game mode is probably one of the most popular ways to play any video game, especially open worlds. Considering that open world sandbox games kind of let you create your own adventure, it's obvious that people would create one. But what I want to know is, how does the idea of Ironman Mode get so incredibly popular that it made its way officially into my favorite game of all time, RuneScape? Originally, my plan was to create a video talking about the advantages and disadvantages of adopting an Ironman playstyle in RuneScape. However, during my exploration of Reddit to uncover the most common motives behind playing the Ironman game mode, I found myself gradually drawn into a deeper question. It dawned on me that obviously the concept of a limited account, whether that be self-imposed or part of an official game mode, extended way beyond RuneScape. I was curious, and that drove me to deep dive into the origins of the idea across the history of video games in general. The journey began with a really simple Google search. Where did Ironman Mode come from? The search led me to a Reddit post from about 9 years ago, where an individual under the screen name of Poon Brigade had a similar thought. Who created the idea? Initially, one person hinted at its origins being from World of Warcraft, which is a possibility that's fairly credible, seeing how World of Warcraft is arguably the most popular MMO of all time, and it's got an incredibly dedicated fanbase. So it makes sense for players just over time looking for more replayability in their favorite game would make up some restrictions to keep the game fresh. However, a little further down in the comments, somebody credited the creation of Iron Man to the players of the RPG game Diablo. Diablo, for all those that don't know, is an action RPG developed by Blizzard Entertainment, the same people that developed World of Warcraft. There's 4 main Diablo games in the franchise as of writing this video. You got Diablo 1, Diablo 2, Diablo 3, Diablo 4, and not to mention Diablo Immortal, which is classified as a spin-off. Despite releasing on PC and mobile, to a lot of the community it's known as a microtransaction-ridden mobile game, and I'm glad I've never had to deal with anything like that in RuneScape.
Are you sure about that?
The world of Diablo is based on the premise of a literal war between heaven and hell, where the player controls a hero who has the not-so-easy job of saving the world from Diablo himself. As you could guess, the game itself can already be pretty hard. I mean, you're working your way up, down, to fight the devil himself. You would think that conquering literally hell would be enough for people who struggle to touch grass, and I say that like I haven't spent the last month inside writing a video essay on RuneScape, but for some reason that just wasn't enough. They wanted a more challenging hardcore way to play the game. This method is known as DIY, or later known as Iron Man. The core concept involved playing the game without interacting with any shops or any NPC services. I thought that this sounded pretty familiar to the Iron Man mode in RuneScape. Digging a little deeper into the forum post, I found a reference about an individual known as Item69. Item started playing RuneScape under the self-proclaimed title of a DIY or a purist. They thought the RuneScape grind just wasn't enough already. This led me to a forum post on Tippet from August 2009 featuring 99 pages of Item's detailed account of their journey as a quote-unquote purist or Iron Man player in RuneScape. The posts and updates took place from about 2009 to June in 2016. This seemed to be one of the earliest and most thoroughly documented instances of Iron Man playstyle in RuneScape, and by the looks of the comments, people were loving it. But the thing that really caught my attention was the statement that Item used to preface their original post, stating, "I grew up playing Diablo 2 and slowly converted into a purist." Given that Diablo 2 debuted in 2000, this statement not only matched the earlier comment regarding the Iron Man game mode origins, but it also shed light on its approximate time period. At this point I felt like this rabbit hole could really lead somewhere. Eager to figure out more about the early life of the Iron Man game mode, I began my quest by investigating evidence of the Iron Man playstyle in Diablo. Unfortunately, I was looking for some earlier documentation so I could start my way from the bottom and work my way up, but most of what I found was relatively recent, spanning from about 2019 to 2023, leading me to a temporary dead end. A recently created Reddit post titled "We Need You to Record Diablo 1 History" kinda got me excited. Although the post did lead me to a website showcasing images from the original Diablo game, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. I stumbled upon a GitHub link, which in turn led me to a treasure trove of archives that were dedicated websites centered around all things that are Diablo. The Descent Iron Man link redirected me to the Wayback Machine archive, which, if you haven't heard of it, it's like an online museum of snapshots of websites. You can check out some really cool stuff like the announcement page for RuneScape Classic all the way back in 2000. It lets me take a sneak peek into a time before the Gower brothers ruined me. This website would turn out to be really important in my journey. I found a snapshot of the Descend Iron Man website, which was a website dedicated to classic Diablo and the Iron Man concept. Unfortunately, other than the homepage, only the About Me and a page describing some of the character build strategies were archived, which is interesting for sure, but proved to be limited in the information that I could find from it. I decided to join the Discord server just to see what I could find, and I found it sparsely populated. It only had about 65 members, but there seemed to be a little bit of activity left. The last chat message I saw was from roughly a month ago. The third link, Diablo Iron Man, however, proved to be somewhat of a breakthrough. At first I couldn't get it to load, so I thought that it was just going to be another dead end. But then I decided on a last ditch attempt. I just took the link and pasted it directly into the Wayback Machine. I ended up finding snapshots from the website that were from all the way back in 1999, which is a lot earlier than I thought it was going to be. The snapshot from 1999 wasn't working, however the 2001 snapshot led me to a website dedicated to what looked like to be a custom version of Diablo tailored for Ironman mode. It was similar to the first website because it also had pages talking about the strategies for different character builds. This website was the epitome of early 2000s website design and I love it. I know you can't read this text, but I don't give a shit because this is the background style of website. This website had links to download older Diablo versions and resources for what I assumed was to mod the game for an Iron Man experience. This made it clear to me that the Iron Man concept clearly transcends RuneScape, possibly predating RuneScape entirely. The creation of a website entirely dedicated to Ironman Mode in Diablo signifies some popularity and it has a substantial following, but where do we go from this point? So I could go on pretty much forever about how the different ways that Ironman Mode or similar gameplay styles have popped up in video games, like hardcore servers in World of Warcraft where if your character dies, you lose the character forever.
What? It happened so fast!
It's a bit like the hardcore Ironman Mode in RuneScape.
I just lost my hardcore status.
Or I could talk about Dark Souls players who have cooked up an Iron Man / hardcore mode where you can only use a limited number of quick saves. It makes dying at a boss fight way worse because without a save point you could end up losing so much progress, having to dig out those old keyboards and controller from the closet because your current one was turned into sand after getting sent to oblivion by whatever the actual fuck this is. But what's got me curious is the history of Ironman Mode in RuneScape specifically. I mean, sure, players set their own self-imposed challenges back in RuneScape Classic, but Ironman Mode didn't become official until October 13th, 2014. So when did it blow up so much that the big shots at Jagex noticed and decided to put in some serious work that would make it an official game mode? And then subsequently spend a ton of extra time making sure that Iron Man players could access all the new content in the future. To figure this out, let's start at the beginning of the rabbit hole, items post on Tippet, which I'll leave a link to in the description if you're interested in checking out his journey. It's pretty cool and I would suggest it. Unfortunately, like a lot of the old forum posts, most of the pictures are lost to time because the websites hosting them either shut down or just cleared out a bunch of stuff for newer content. So we're missing a lot of items' original screenshots, but I was able to uncover a few to look at. So what I did was use the Wayback Machine, and luckily I was able to find screenshots of items' character wearing a Ceradama plate body and dragon legs. I mean, it's a trip down nostalgia lane at the very least. Probably one of those lucky ones that got his plate back after someone trimmed it at the GE. I also found another picture that shows their Grand Exchange history because they were trying to prove that they didn't have any previous purchases, but for person-to-person trading, we're just going to have to take their word for it. The screenshot also shows their stats, which is actually kind of cool because it seems like Items started this whole documentation thing after playing for a while. Some of the other stuff you could find at Items posts was long-term goals like hitting 95 prayer, 92 agility, and a short wish list of gear they wanted to get. The thread is filled with people loving the new game mode. Iron Man is so common now, and it's cool to see people talk about it like it's the first time they've ever seen it, saying stuff like, "I've always wondered how far someone could get without trading, and now with Iron Man being an official mode, we see that you can go as far as you want, as proven by the high scores of both RuneScape 3 and old school RuneScape." As I'm flipping through the pages of Item's post, I noticed there's a period in updates where the thread went quiet for about a month. Item breaks the silence by getting a little bit nostalgic about the good old days and continuing the age-old tradition of complaining that RuneScape is getting messed up by the updates. History is truly doomed to repeat itself. Item plans to return to RuneScape Classic but not hardcore gaming on Diablo 3. At this point in Item's journey, it marks a time when RuneScape took a hit in player numbers due to some controversial updates like the evolution of combat, or better known as EOC, which led me and many other people to quitting the game entirely. The forum post stays quiet for about 11 months, and then after this, Item announces a comeback to RuneScape. These posts were for 2013, shortly after old school RuneScape dropped, which seemed to be what convinced Item to return. Although it's far from the only one, we now have a documented instance of Iron Man being implemented into old school RuneScape. There's screenshots showing a ton of clue rewards, stats, and bank updates, and Item also achieves 99 cooking and fishing, posting screenshots showing off the amount of fish they caught during the grind, which is an amazing feat because with that amount of AFK time, it means that they were probably able to catch up to the new season of One Piece that everybody's been talking about.
Jesus Christ.
They also now have a trimmed skill cape on an unofficial Iron Man account, which is a really tough grind for an account they can't trade. Okay, so far what we witnessed is one player's journey from August 2009 to July 2013, proving that this playstyle was alive even when old school RuneScape first came out. Item continued to play old school RuneScape until the official release of Ironman Mode in 2014. Whenever that happened, they made the switch back to RS3, beginning a new adventure as an official hardcore Iron Man account. They said that they were bored of old school RuneScape and really wanted to get started on some serious questing in RS3. The thread goes from there all the way into 2016, where we would receive the last update for the account with Item reaching 120 dungeoneering. But Item was far from the only one playing an Iron Man account. The account type had become very popular by the time the Item had even started documenting his old school RuneScape journey, even attracting the attention of incredibly popular RuneScape streamers named Foe and Bodhi. Speaking of Bodhi, Foe, and their unofficial Iron Man accounts, they were really the catalyst when it came to making Ironman Mode an official game mode.
And Jagex claimed at that RuneFest that we were at when they announced it that they did that because we were two of the most influential to the mode, which like encouraged a lot of other people to try it out with unofficial accounts and stuff like that, which helped the mode grow to the point where Jagex wanted to make an official mode out of it.
This is proven by a tweet from Mod Ash, who is also known as God Ash. Ash is the product manager for old school RuneScape, and when asked about what inspired the official Iron Man game mode, he responded, "Popular streamers playing like that unofficially, and thus inspiring more players to play like that." Mod Ash has been around since joining Jagex in 2004 and been an incredible source of information for years. You may have noticed a fun fact in Mod Ash's tweet that the Iron Man tutors in game are named Adam and Paul, which also just happen to be the first names of Bodhi and Foe, cementing them in the Iron Man Mode history books.
And then the Iron Man NPCs were named after Bodhi and I.
Bodhi started his Iron Man style journey in May of 2014 with an account named Peckish Whale. He titled his YouTube series on the account The One Man Army. The series was a player killing or a PvP series, and it had a few rules that were a little bit different than an Iron Man account as we know it, but it was still a self-restricted Iron Man type account nonetheless. The series ended up being an incredible 54 episodes long, continuing on well after the official release of Iron Man Mode. After that, it transitioned into a series called Single Player RuneScape using the same account.
I will be just playing the game single player, Iron Man, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, I'm an unofficial Iron Man, but I'm not going to trade, and everything obviously will be done alone.
After the official release of Iron Man Mode, Bodhi went on to make quite a few hardcore accounts, and it became an incredibly popular series for him to do. When an account would lose its status, he would immediately start over and do it all again, trying to get further than last time.
Oh, there it goes again, boys.
There's room for a quote about insanity here, but to be honest, my dude Bodhi's more dedicated than crazy. Bodhi eventually moved away from the Iron Man life, returning to his main account, simply called Bodhi, with the goal of achieving every third age item in the game. In other words, trying to amass a wealth similar to the Rockefellers. Foe, at almost the same time as Bodhi, started his own unofficial Iron Man series on his account named Iron Foe. He called this series the Self-Sufficient series. This series continued for about 10 episodes on YouTube, which is really short for a series like this, but this most likely isn't all the content from this account because Foe was mainly focused on the streaming side of content, so his uploads on YouTube at the time were sometimes pretty scarce.
I was too busy with school last semester, I couldn't juggle YouTube and Twitch, so I decided to just focus on Twitch when I could.
He moved on to have a ton of different Iron Man accounts as his RuneScape career, including his Ultimate Iron Man, Fultimate, and his hardcore Iron Man named Focus. After his Focus account was violently murdered by the Corporeal Beast, he made a new hardcore named Lost Focus. This was a play on his last hardcore's name. This account would eventually become an incredible hardcore account with a total level of 2060 before eventually dying in the same way that his previous account did, at the Corporeal Beast. Except this time, it was done as a forfeit for a charity stream for raising more than $50,000. A noble sacrifice if I do say so myself. A little over a year after the death of Lost Focus, a new version of Ironman Mode was released called Group Ironman. This account type allows you and 4 other people to play on Ironman accounts that are only allowed to trade within your group. This is really awesome because it makes mundane tasks like collecting wood or like fishing a little bit more manageable because now you can do them both at the same time. And it kind of just all comes together and makes the whole process of being an Ironman just a little bit faster. You can also make these accounts hardcore Ironman, and if you choose to take the hardcore Ironman route, then your team gets a number of shared lives equal to the amount of players on your team. So if there's 5 players, for example, your team's only allowed to die 5 times before your hardcore status is revoked. It doesn't matter who loses them, so one person can lose them all if they feel so inclined. I'm looking at you, Mr. Mammal.
No way!
Speaking of Mr. Mammal, Foe went on to spend most of his time playing a hardcore group Ironman series called The Farmers with 3 other streamers named MMORPGRS, Mr. Mammal, and Roydy. This turned out to be some of the most popular and in my opinion some of the best RuneScape content that I've ever seen on Twitch or YouTube. The group eventually came to an end after Mr. Mammal died in the Theater of Blood, losing their final life. With this death, Mr. Mammal had been the only one to die in the group, losing all 4 of their lives. He still gets shit for it to this day, but we love him all the same.
I know you know this, but I think it needs to be said anyways. None of us are upset, dude. This feels like the handcuffs have been taken off, man.
This series is so popular that the fans begged for it to come back, resulting in a comeback series called The Farmers V2, which is currently ongoing at the time of making this video. Even though self-imposed restrictions isn't this fresh new idea that it once was, it still impacts the way that we play games today. Just this month, Blizzard announced that you'll be seeing an official and more traditional version of the Iron Man game mode added to World of Warcraft for 2024. I've seen so much content on YouTube of people playing Iron Man accounts, whether it's old school or RuneScape 3, it seems to really be holding strong. I recently started an Iron Man of my own in RuneScape 3 because, to be honest, I kind of missed it. I mean, playing the game solo really brings on a different feel, and I was tired of drops that just felt like coins on the ground instead of an upgrade for your Iron Man that you've worked really hard for. Not to mention, it makes a lot more sense in the lore, because who the hell is this guy and why is he also the World Guardian? But regardless of how you play the game, I think that we can all agree that if it wasn't for the ideas like Iron Man Mode, games would be a lot more boring. Our beloved 20-year-old game might not even exist anymore, so to all the self-hating RPG-addicted energy drink consuming people out there, just know I appreciate you, and keep coming up with cool ideas so people can have that I'm gonna do this one more thing before I go to bed feeling in games that we love so much. So that's been the history of Iron Man, or at least the parts that I thought were kind of interesting. I'm so happy that it found its way into RuneScape as an official game mode because it really gives me a lot of enjoyment that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And I've really enjoyed playing my Iron Man on RuneScape 3 and old school RuneScape. If you play RuneScape and you haven't already given Iron Man a chance, I suggest giving it a try because you might find that you like it a lot more than you think you would. It obviously has a long history in video games and it's probably not going to stop here. I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it, and I really hope to see you next time.